Hype Network presents.
On this episode of Season 4, Let's Talk.
Right now, I think the greatest thing that I learned from Rob is acceptance, like accepting whatever is being offered to you. So it could be something offered to you by people or the circumstances that you're at.
Before we get into this episode, make sure to share this with your family and friends. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Rajiv Show. Hey folks, welcome back to The Rajiv Show, and I'm your host Rajiv Doreswamy. And this show aims to help reach out to those who are currently struggling in life and to remind you that life is indeed beautiful when you're inspired to make it your own.
Before we start this conversation, I would like to greet our host for today, Rajiv. Happy birthday!
Hey folks, welcome back to the Let's Talk series. And my guest today is a member, of course, of the podcast PH as well, and also member, I think, from the Philippine Podcast Directory. He's the podcast host of Rome and Manila, and he's a pretty cool guy. The main reason why I really like talking to this guy is so funny because when we get together in our community, he always he always changes his background, and we always ask him, "Pal, where are you at?" And of course, with the connection of Rome in Manila, he is always changing his background to specific locations. So, folks, let me introduce my guest, Rome Juanatas. Hey, pal, how you doing?
Yes, thank you. Hello, Reggie. Hello to all the listeners. Thank you very much for introducing me as funny. I try to be funny as much as I can, although sometimes I feel he's not really funny. But yeah, thank you for considering me as funny. And yeah, I'm happy to be here talking with you right now. How are you doing?
Doing good. I had a pretty productive day and a little bit tired, but you know, I love doing what I do. So yeah, gotta keep striving forth. And before we start the conversation, of course, could you give a little bit of background about yourself to my listeners?
Okay, yes. So once again, hello. My name is Rome Juanatas. I pronounce my last name differently from time to time. Usually, I say Juanatas so that people know how it's spelled, but most people say it's Juanatas, like the Spanish pronunciation. Yeah, but that's okay. It's not really easy to like pronounce it when you first see it.
Yeah.
So yeah. What else do you want to know about me aside from my name? Yeah, my podcast is called Rome is in Manila, but I'm not really in Manila. I'm in Quezon City. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's a running joke in the PPD, like where is Rome? So I can be in the gym or everywhere. And
True.
yeah, I've been podcasting since March, so it started because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have a day job. I like my day job. What else? I speak Korean. I use that for my work. And right now, I also have a Korean ASMR podcast.
Mm.
So that's something. I think that's something that we don't commonly do as people. Like
Yeah.
do an ASMR in a foreign language, especially not your first language, right?
Yeah, it's
So
true. It's true.
yeah, that's a project that I'm doing, and actually that one is performing better than my main podcast. Like I have more than twice the subscribers on my Korean ASMR podcast as compared to Rome is in Manila. So, but yeah, but I don't spend much time on the Korean ASMR podcast. Like I only spend maybe 20 minutes a week doing that as
Hmm.
compared to the main podcast wherein I do interviews. So that takes a lot of time. But anyway, it's fun. It's very interesting that I started podcasting during this time and then I got to meet people from the Philippine Podcast Directory and also from the Podcast PH. There's a lot of good people there, and the community is really awesome. So I received a lot of help well in doing this and that. And yeah, that's where I met you, Rajiv, right?
It's true. True story, folks. True story. Anyway, I
Yes.
gotta ask, if you and
Mm.
I were classmates in high school, who were you in high school? Were you the big guy, the big bully guy, or were you the guy in the back seat? You know, are you the sporty guy, or more in the books, or with the chicks, or I gotta ask.
Mm. Yeah. I think this one, if we were classmates, it depends on your personality. Because, yeah, I usually change depending on who I am with. So if I have this classmate who likes reading books,
Yeah,
so if I'm seated to that classmate, then I will also like reading books.
really.
But if I'm seated next to the one who say loves chatting during the class,
Yeah.
then I might as well chat a lot during the class instead of focusing on the session. But yeah, but I'm not the sporty guy, that's for sure. I didn't do a lot of sports when I was in high school.
Yeah.
You can say that I'm more introverted than most people.
Really?
It
Ah,
doesn't mean I
interesting.
didn't get along with a lot of people, because even though I was introverted, I had
Yeah.
like a number of close friends, and when I'm with those close friends, I really feel very comfortable. And when I'm comfortable, I don't seem like an introvert. I would feel like, yeah, extrovert. I would easily express myself. So yeah, more like a chameleon, right? Changing according to the environment you're at. I
Wow.
think so. Depending on what kind of person you are, Rajiv, if we were classmates, I'd probably adapt to the character that you have.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I gotta ask though, up front, where does the English? Where
Mm.
did the English? Your English is pretty phenomenal. I gotta ask. Well,
Really?
because yeah, I mean, for me, from my standpoint, when I grew up here in the Philippines, how I learned how to speak English was by watching movies. I was exposed to
Mm.
the Hollywood movies. And when I went to India,
Right.
the British language started, taking over. For when I was studying in high school, everybody was speaking
Mm.
British English, so I started adapting to that. But I gotta ask, where did you get your English? Because it's really impeccable. I gotta compliment your English. It's pretty cool.
I I don't really know how to answer that question, because I feel like I just studied English the same way most Filipinos did. I learned English in school. Like, all of us studied English from when we were in elementary, and then high school, and then college. But maybe I think I didn't speak this way up until college.
Oh,
And I think when I was in college, normally I would prefer speaking in Filipino because, well, that's more convenient.
mm,
I think the way I speak English now could be probably due to different factors. Like, I had to interact with a lot of foreigners for quite some time.
mm.
But I stayed in Korea for 7 months,
Oh, that's cool.
and well, there's not a lot. Yeah, there's not a lot of Korean people who could speak English. But when I had foreigners along with me who can speak English, then we would speak English. So I think I had to adapt.
Mm,
Like, I had friends who were from America, from Europe,
mm,
other Western and European countries.
mm.
So whenever we spend time together, I would have to talk to them the way they talk, because it's very probable that they wouldn't understand me unless I speak the same way that they did. So
Mm.
yeah, I think that's one thing that made me made me speak English in this way. Yeah,
Pretty
but
cool.
I don't consider myself like somebody who speaks English really good. I still have a lot of imperfections in
Yeah.
terms of grammar and then pronunciation. But I actually like British English. It's just that it's not easy to pull off. Like you really have to study how to speak British English.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I wanna get into your college life if you don't mind. What did you
Sure, sure.
study? What did you study in college?
Okay, so in college, I studied chemical engineering. It
Mm,
wasn't actually my first choice when I took the UPCAT.
mm,
So when I took the UPCAT, I was hoping to study what's this? ECE, Electronics Communications
mm,
Engineering. But that one is a quota course in UP. I think they only accepted about 100 students, and I didn't get in.
mm,
So I had to choose another course, another major.
mm,
And so I looked at the list, and then they said that I could take chemical engineering. And actually, I had a friend who also wanted to take chemical engineering. So he somehow, what's this? He somehow motivated me to
mm,
study chemical engineering because he said, if you study chemical engineering, there's gonna be a lot of, opportunities in the future. You're gonna make a lot of money and stuff. So yeah, that was kind of the motivation that I had, and because we were like rivals in terms of
mm,
studying back in high school. So
mm.
I thought, well, I need to study this same thing in college so that I could prove him, yeah,
Wow.
that maybe I'm better than him, but it didn't turn out that way. So yeah, I studied chemical engineering in college.
Mm,
Supposedly it's for 5 years,
mm,
but I spent 6 years in college. I don't really feel bad having to spend 6 years in college because anyway, I learned a lot during the process.
mm,
And yeah, college was fun. I met a lot of friends, and yeah, I don't know, there were very fun experiences that I've had when I was in college. Like I got into an exchange program in Japan, but it wasn't a long exchange program, just for 9 days. But
yeah.
yeah, I think I had a lot of opportunities when I was in college, opportunities for growth and exploration.
Mm. Interesting. You've opened up three boxes that I've noticed. One is motivation, your competitive nature with your your rival, and your journey is in Japan. I think I want to talk about your journeys because I think earlier on you mentioned you also went to South Korea. Um,
Mhm.
how did that happen? I want to ask first. I want to ask first the South Korea question. How did you end up in South Korea? And then the follow up is, how did you end up in Japan? Like, which one came first?
Okay. All right. So actually, Japan happened first. But
Hmm.
okay. So do you want me to talk about Japan first because it
Sure,
happened
sure,
first,
sure,
or
sure.
do you? Okay. So Japan, I visited Japan when I was in college.
Hmm.
This was because of a program that was led by the Prime Minister,
Hmm.
Shintaro Abe. The program was called Genesis 2.0. So
Wow.
it's a 9-day exchange program for it's not only for Filipino students, but for I think Southeast Asian students
Hmm.
who are in the field of science and technology. So I applied for the program, I got in, and then there were about 80 Filipino students who went with me. So we
Hmm.
went to Japan for 9 days. That was in 2014, I think.
Hmm.
So we visited Japan. It was all expenses paid.
Wow.
We Yeah, the flight that we used was Japan Airlines. The food in the flight was okay. I don't really like airport food or airplane food, but the food they served us was okay. We even had Haagen-Dazs. And then when we were in Japan, we mostly traveled every day. Like we were in the bus
Huh.
like most hours of the day because we kept moving from one place to another, but we experienced quite a number of 5-star hotels
Wow, that feels
in
awesome.
Narita and then in Tokyo Bay.
Wow.
So, but then aside from staying in the main city, we actually went to Shizuoka. I think that's also the same name that Shizuoka has in the Rayman, but yeah, Shizuoka. So we went to that place and then had homestay.
Mm.
We stayed with a family for 2 nights
Mm.
and 3 days, if I remember it right.
Mm.
And it was really fun doing the homestay. I think that was the highlight of everything that we did there, because
Mm.
we actually, I said we kept moving from one place to another, right? So we went to museums,
Mm.
to universities, and we attended lectures, so on and so forth.
Mm.
But for me, the highlight was when we stayed with the family, because that's when I felt like we were able to connect more to the culture of Japan, especially within a family. And there's an interesting story when I did the homestay.
Mm.
I was with another guy, so there's two of us, and then the family.
Mm.
So there's Haha and Chichi.
Mm.
Haha is mother, and Chichi is father. So those are the how you call them. And after having dinner,
Mm.
our first dinner at night, um, I volunteered to wash the dishes
Mm.
because, well, they were providing food and they were providing a place for us to stay. So I just thought it would be polite to offer to wash the dishes. And then, haha, the mother was saying, "No, you don't have to do it. You're my guest.
Mm.
So let me just do it." But then I and then my friend, my colleague, we insisted that we do it as a way of giving thanks to her and the family. And
Mm.
then she started crying. She started crying because she said it was the first time somebody did that for them.
Mm.
It's like she said there's been a lot of homestayers from different countries before us, like from Europe, from America, and other countries. But it
Mm.
was the first time when we Filipinos did that for her, and she really appreciated it, and she cried in tears. So that was really memorable, and yeah, I hope that by doing that we somehow made her consider Filipinos are as these kinds of people, like really kind, really polite, offering to do things even for the homeowners.
It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So that's one memorable thing that I've experienced. Of course, there's a lot of tech in Japan that we do not have here in the Philippines, but for me that one is what I like the most
Pretty
in
cool.
the experience that we've had. Yeah. And in Korea, okay, so Korea happened a little bit later.
Mm.
I've actually been to Korea a number of times, like 5 times already. But the longest stay that I've had in Korea was for 7 months, and that was in 2016 until early 2017.
Mm.
The reason why I went to Korea was because I was supposed to study masters. So I applied for a scholarship,
Mm.
and there's this research assistant scholarship from
Mm.
the professor. So it's a direct scholarship rather than like a government scholarship.
Mm.
So I went there, I applied for that, I got in, and I started studying masters for environmental engineering. This
Mm.
school was okay. The professor was actually quite okay as well.
Mm.
But there was this sort of differences between me and the professor.
Mm.
So it was difficult for us to move forward working together. So we decided that, well, we don't have to continue doing this research together, and you don't have to continue studying masters here if that's like what you plan to do.
Mm.
So yeah, we separated ways. So I didn't finish that master's degree in Korea, but rather I had some time to travel for a little bit,
Oh, that's nice.
and also to take some sort of Korean classes, but it was in a cram school. But yeah, for quite some time, I visited different places and I studied their language. And yeah, because of that, I can speak Korean now.
Hmm.
I didn't reach native fluency yet, but I can at least speak in a business manner. I can make transactions in Korean without having much difficulty. So that's my main takeaway from that experience of staying in Korea for 7 months, I think. Yeah, and I love winter, by the way. Yeah, winter is, for me, winter is the best. I like it when it's cold.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're in Baguio, right? I really
Yeah.
envy you for being in Baguio because I love the cold weather. It's so hot here in Manila, in Quezon City.
Yeah. That's interesting. Interesting. When the next question is what adapting? How would the adaptation, for both countries when you? I mean, I'm sure when you went to Japan and then when you transitioned to Korea, it was like the same. You had to learn how to adapt. The first time you were in another country, you had to adapt as fast as possible. Or how did you learn how to adapt?
Mhm. In Japan, I didn't really have to adapt because I knew that it was gonna be a short stay.
Hmm.
So 9 days was quite okay. And then we went there during in the middle of spring and summer, so it wasn't so hot, it wasn't so cold.
Hmm.
So the weather was quite fine. I didn't know how to speak Japanese, so we
Ah.
always needed a translator with us. But they also gave us this booklet,
Hmm.
which contained different kinds of, I mean, different expressions that we can use if we were to speak with Japanese natives. So yeah, I didn't have to adjust a lot in Japan. It's more of I just prepared myself to absorb whatever we were going to experience there because Japan was the first foreign country that I've ever visited.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was quite transformative in a way because it made me see how big the world is and at
Hmm.
the same time how small the world could be. And yeah, it was quite good because I was also able to make friends in Japan. We're still friends right now, although we don't communicate as much. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so I didn't need a lot of adapting in
Yeah.
Japan, but it's a different case in Korea because when I went to Korea for a master's degree,
Hmm.
I was thinking that I would be there for at least 2 years. So I needed to like adapt a lot.
Hmm.
The one thing that I needed to prepare for was the seasons because they have 4 seasons, right?
Yeah.
When I went to Korea that time, it was summer, so
Hmm.
I didn't really bring a lot of clothes. I just brought maybe 5 pairs of t-shirts and
Hmm.
pants, and that was because it was the summer. But then as autumn and winter came, it
Yeah.
became colder and colder. So I was lucky that I had some friends. I made some friends who helped me with regards to clothing. So like they had extra thick clothes that they gave me so that I wouldn't have to buy clothes for myself during the autumn and winter.
Yeah.
So that one was a very I think that one is something people have to prepare for if they're going to travel there and stay there for quite some time. As for the language, when I went to Korea, I didn't really know a lot of Korean.
Huh.
I just knew how to read and write. I knew how to introduce myself, but I couldn't handle conversations. Like if somebody tried to speak to me in Korean,
Huh.
I might just freeze and say nothing. So that was the level I was at. But yeah, because I was studying and doing research at that time,
Yeah.
and I had to travel from my home, I mean the place where I was staying at, and
Hmm.
the university. So during the travel, I spent those times listening to podcasts in Korean so that I could improve my Korean speaking and listening skills. And somehow it helped me, although it did really, it's not the major factor as how to I learned Korean, because it was the cram school that I
Mm.
attended later on, which helped me to speak Korean. With regards to culture and food, I think there's a lot to um, adjust to, especially with food.
Yeah.
If a person is very picky with food, then it's gonna be difficult. But for me, I wasn't picky with food, so I could
Yeah.
eat anything, and I actually love Korean food, so I didn't have a hard time with regards to that. But maybe in terms of culture, that's when
Huh.
it would be quite challenging, because here in the Philippines, we have a very different culture as to Koreans. I think we're still very conservative. I mean, the Philippines is still very conservative, but we
Yeah.
have adopted a lot of Western cultures.
Hmm.
So, like, we don't, I'm not sure about a lot of people, but within my circle, I don't really use ma'am, sir, or whatever titles normally. I would just say their first names. But in Korea, you cannot just say people's first name because that would be considered rude.
Hmm.
So you would have to know their titles first. Like if they are the president of something or if they are a manager, you have to call them by their title. So you tell you when you call them, you should say Manager Kim or Deputy Lee, something like that. And if it's just a friend, but your friend is a little bit older than
Hmm.
you might have to use the polite terms of endearment. Here in the Philippines, we say kuya or ate, right?
Yeah.
So they also have those in Korea, unless unless that person has already adapted to Western culture, then you can also call them by their first name. So yeah, that's just about the I mean, that's just about calling people, not even like dealing with them per se. Dealing with them is a different thing, and there's a lot to discuss if we're going to discuss about their culture. And
Yeah.
I'm not really an expert for their culture because I stay there only for 7 months. But yeah, I can say that I learned a lot about their culture during that stay.
Interesting. Interesting. Now, wow, that's phenomenal. I mean, coming from a person who went to who grew up, yeah, I mentioned earlier, I grew up here, and I was indoctrinated with the Western stuff due to, of course, television,
Mhm.
and transitioning into India. My first impressions of the country was much more different than I'd expected, because I think uh, with a childish mind, I envisioned the
Mm,
high school, with the locker room and all that stuff. And it was funny. I don't think I mentioned this in the season two life in India. When I was traveling
mm,
to India and Bangalore, my vision and my idea of what Bangalore, India would look like was more on the western side, because I think that time uh, High School Musical and all these other, Western high school stuff were on TV,
mm.
and uh, I,
Right.
uh, thinking about, if I go to a school, will I have the locker room and all this stuff? And it was kind of weirdly contradictive, although there were a lot of benefits to what I didn't expect. And that was when I was studying. Me and my sister was studying in India. Our aunt happened to be a teacher of biology, so it
Mm,
was kind of easy. But every time we get into trouble, it's like we just run to our aunt, mostly me. My sister, she knows how to defend herself. She knows how to adapt. From my end, it was tough because one was my name Rajiv Doreswamy. The government
mm,
assumed that my name was Indian itself when I went there, so I had a tough time. My
mm,
sister managed to get away with the name, because I think from the time that she left, but we both left high school here. I think she was in the, we call it standards there. I don't know how we call it here. I think it's grade or sixth grade or something. Uh, When she
Mm.
left, I think she left around the sixth grade, and I also left around the grade five or fifth standard. It was unfortunate for me. I had
Mm.
to repeat my fifth standard, and during that time, since as mentioned earlier, uh, the government didn't allow me to choose a second language and a third language, and I was forced to study
Oh.
Hindi as the second language. It was funny,
Mm.
and my sister got away with it because she studied French and she had like a French tutor and all that stuff. So she kind of she knows how to speak French, and I think she went to this prestigious school, Alliance Française, where she learned French, and I
Mm.
never had that luxury. I had no choice but to study Hindi, and the experience was crazy and it was scary. And I remember this distinctively as though it was yesterday, that when um, when we had the first class, the Hindi class, and it was second language. I remember I was sitting in the corner. I did not know because every class hours we had, all the students had to shift from if they have other classes from other school, other specific, like when I was integrated into the French, saying my second language is French. I had to run to this one particular room where the French teacher would teach. There was no stable place where we would learn, and that was the case for most of the
Mm.
times. But during the earlier thing, all the other classmates who had different subjects during the second language period, they had to go out, and then of course the people who had second language Hindi stayed in the room. I remember the teacher
Mm.
came in, and everybody was, they were memorizing some poem, and once the
Mm.
teacher came in, you know she said recite this poem, and then everybody was going, "Wah," and I couldn't even catch the first line. They're already like on the line five or line six. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And that's the scary thing about my experience. And looking back at it, it was it was funny. I didn't even know how I managed to get through the timelines, but I managed to scrape by. And then finally, when the government decided that my name is, I'm officially a foreigner, then I decided to take second language French, which was okay. I kind of worked
Mm.
around it, and I was still forced to learn Hindi though, which was kind of weird as the third language. But yeah, that was one of my challenges that I faced. And
Wow.
in terms of adapting to food, my sister was
Mm.
much more chameleon than me. For me, it was tough because my tongue is used to chicken adobo, and the Philippine dish. And when
Yeah.
we went to India, everything they put spice on practically everything. I mean, I'm a huge seafood guy, and I really hated the fact that if I knew someone who was gonna we go to a restaurant, and I always have to order the sweet and sour or whatever because I cannot really stand the spice. Even if I attempt to,
Oh.
it feels like you're eating a bell pepper. If you could visualize eating a bell pepper raw, that's the feeling basically. It's a nice bite in the beginning,
Mm.
but it starts
Yeah.
deteriorating as as it crosses the esophagus and then goes into the stomach. You know, so yeah, it was tough. Um, but during the time span, kind of, I had to figure out my way. I mean, I had to adjust in a little bit of sing. But for you, it's kind of more respects to you actually with that regard. But yeah, but I find
I
that
don't know. I just
interesting.
tried my best. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now I want to open the second box, which saying is connected to saying the third box here. When you mentioned you had a rival in high school who you wanted to compete with in chemical engineering, I gotta ask, uh,
Mm.
how did you get yourself fired up? I mean, do you have a ritual, or when you sing, when you were studying in college, did you have like a particular ritual? I have this quotation, or how do you get into that mindset? I gotta ask.
Okay, so I have to be honest here. When I was in high school, I would say I had a competitive mind, but I didn't really study a lot. So it's just I had this, sort of mentality that when I'm in class,
Hmm.
I try my best to absorb what's being taught. Although I already mentioned that sometimes I can also be very chatty during the class.
Hmm.
But yeah, I usually learn everything in class, not at home. I didn't like studying at home
Oh,
because
really?
for me, home is where you do other stuff other than studying. So
Yeah.
when I was in high school, I would just, well, I had to do my homeworks at home at least.
Yeah.
But aside from homeworks, I didn't really do a lot of studying at home unless there's some sort of quiz bee or some sort of competition. And
Yeah.
that's actually where I met my rival. So my rival wasn't in the same school as I was. He
Yeah.
was in a different school, a different division. So we're like miles apart. So that's where I met him. And then, so we just knew each other from high school. And then in college, we also didn't study together
Huh.
because he studied in Los Baños.
Huh.
So we didn't get to see each other. But how I studied in college, I felt like I somehow deteriorated
Huh.
in college as compared to when I was in high school. I still used the same mentality. So in college, I wasn't the same as I was in high school.
Hmm.
So it's not that I was super lazy or anything,
Hmm.
but I still had that mentality that I would only learn things in class. I mean, I would only learn course work in class, not at home. So at home, I would do homeworks like that, but I wouldn't do the reading or something unless there are required readings that I have to read before class.
Hmm.
So only those things I would do. So only the required. So I was that kind of person. If it's not required, I will probably not do it
Hmm.
because, well, I wanted to do other things. Like I wanted to learn music
Hmm.
or have time with friends, socialize, or do other fun things.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I studied, I wouldn't say I studied badly,
Hmm.
but I would say I'm in the middle ground of, I was in the middle ground of studying, not studying too hard, but not being too lazy. So I passed after 6 years. I mean, I completed my degree in 6 years.
Hmm.
And then right after that, I got a job and also took my, what's this? My license.
Hmm.
So I took my board exam within 3 months after graduation, and yeah, it went well. I passed. Like I passed with a passing grade. Exactly, the passing grade was 70. I got 70,
Wow.
so I got my license. So
Wow.
yeah, I didn't go to a review school because yeah, same mentality. No need to do other stuff. I already learned my thing
Yeah.
studying in the university for 6 years. I don't need to go
Wow.
to review school. That's how I went through it. But I think it's not applicable to everyone because yeah, we all have our own
Hmm.
styles. Like some people would need a lot of motivation
Hmm.
or like post-it notes in their wall.
Hmm.
My wall in college was empty. It was blank. So
Wow. That's
there was nothing on my wall.
to add that to the friendly rival that you had. Was that only one person, or
Mm.
when you were competing and all that stuff? I'm sure you had the mindset of probably Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, Black Mamba mentality. Was it all out against everybody, or was that also the part of the nature, like you wanted to take, I want to take this guy out and I want to knock him out in this particular subject or something? Did you have that, or it was just that everybody is my enemy and I got to do this, I got to do what I got to do? How did you formularize your mind and that thing, that regard?
Mhm. Okay, so in college, I wasn't in the same school as that rival, so we didn't really had the chance to compare ourselves while studying. But well, I had other classmates who were like really good, really smart.
Yeah.
They were from Phil Sci High School, so they were intense, like really super into studying.
Wow.
So for me, I didn't do it in that way that I would like knock them out or
Yeah.
do something. But for me, my approach in college was that I would find one thing that I could do better than them and then help them with that. So that was how I did.
Okay.
Like there was this classmate that I had who was really smart,
Huh.
but then while doing some sort of calculation, I felt like I knew better than her, and she admitted that I knew better than her in that aspect. So I helped her with that. Well, anyway, we were group mates, so we had
Yeah.
to help each other. But yeah, what I that was my outlook. If if I can be good at something, I mean, if I can be better at something than others, then maybe I can help them with it. So
Wow.
it's not like, okay, I'm better, so I'm gonna smash you. So it wasn't like that for me.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. I'd wonder. I hope your rival is tuning in. Probably, yeah. I remember this guy now. I should give him a call or something.
Yeah.
But
I usually spam him. Like nowadays, when I release a podcast episode that's related to chemical engineering
yeah,
or engineering in general,
yeah.
I would spam him, like send him, "Hey, listen to this episode."
uh, well, that's interesting. That's interesting. Any before we go on break, do you have a
Mm.
quotation that you subscribe to every day? Do you have any quotation that gets you up and saying, I'm ready to conquer the world every morning, or saying when you do your business?
Uh, okay. Right now, I don't have any. To be honest,
Hmm.
I don't have any quotation that I live by.
Hmm.
Maybe in the past, I had like different kinds of quotations that I tried to live by, like purpose is purpose. So I that could be interpreted in a lot of ways, but yeah, those kinds of things. I don't have that one right now. So it's like I don't know. I just live day by day, and yeah, there's a lot of quotes. To be honest, like I'm writing a lot of quotes in my notebook, but it's not like I subscribe to them and make them my mantra
Hmm.
or a quote to live by. Yeah.
Interesting. I
So
like.
sorry for my boring
Yeah,
answer.
I like how you simplify that. Purpose is purpose. That's the most simplest. So I've never heard of that philosophy. As you mentioned, yeah, it can be interpreted in various things. But purpose is purpose. I've never thought of it that way. It's kind of interesting. That in itself is
Mm,
actually an inspiring thought in its entirety. Anyway,
yeah.
we're just gonna go on a short break, folks. We'll come back and we have a lot of stuff to open up in this conversation. So stay tuned, folks, after these few short messages.
Your Unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast every week is now Pipe Network. Catch the MTG Show podcast every Friday on your favorite podcast platforms. And remember, stay safe and stay wrestle.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and I'm here again with Rome. Our first half was interesting. Basically, we traveled from Philippines to Japan and South Korea, and we learned a lot about the mindset of competitive, and of course, this guy is a phenomenal conversationalist. My friend Rome, from Rome and Manila. I like to call him Rome in Manila, because yeah, we always need to find him every time we have a Zoom community thing. Yes, I'm too repetitive. But anyway, we're gonna get into one of my favorite segments here. Is we're gonna talk about art. Rome, during one of our group chats in our community, Rome, I think, sent out an invitation with improv, and I was interested because I used to watch a lot of Whose Line Is It Anyway, and a lot of American improv, and
Mm,
we're gonna talk about improv because improv is art in itself, and yeah, I gotta ask, what got you into improv?
Okay, so this is okay. I'll try to make the story short,
Yeah.
but let's see. Okay, so I didn't know about improv until 2016.
Hmm.
So I only knew about the scripted theater.
Hmm.
And so there was this in 2016 there was this theater festival called Short and Sweet. So it's a competition of like people doing arts, I mean doing theater.
Hmm.
So I joined in, I auditioned for a play, I got the role, and then we participated or competed.
Hmm.
And then while watching other competitors, there was this guy
Hmm.
who would, like in the middle of his production,
Hmm.
he would ask the audience for some sort of word.
Hmm.
And then that word would be incorporated in his act.
Hmm.
So that was kind of my introduction to improv, that whatever people threw at him, he would take it and then transform it into something beautiful on stage. So that was like my introduction. And then after that, there was this place called Pineapple Labs here I think that's here in Quezon City. And I got to know some people who did improv. And I also had a chance to audition for a group called One and a Half Men. I'm a member of that group because when I became a member, I only stayed for like 2 months and then I went to Korea. So I kind of left them there sad, but yeah. So my improv journey stopped there somehow. But I still kept watching improv shows from time to time. And then this pandemic happened right now. And I got in touch with a friend who was doing some sort of improv tutorial. So I joined his jams and then his classes. Right now I'm actually taking level 2 of his tutorial classes. And it's really fun because I found out that improv is not only for performances on stage, but it's something that you can use in your everyday life. And we realized that actually we are all improvisers. Like not everything that we say are scripted, right? Like while we're having this conversation right now, all that I'm saying is improvised. I don't have a script, you don't have a script. So this is improvisation in a way.
Yeah.
So I learned somehow that improvisation is like a way of looking at life and a way of engaging or dealing with the world. Right now, I think the greatest thing that I learned from improv is acceptance, like accepting whatever is being offered to you. So it could be something offered to you by people or the circumstances that you're at. So yeah, accepting those things and then doing the yes and you know that phrase,
Yeah,
right?
it sounds familiar.
Yes ending to everything.
Yeah.
So you add on top of what's been given you. So acceptance is something that I really learned and realized while doing this improv. And yeah, improv is an art because people do performance improv, and it's really fun because when you mentioned you watch whose line is it anyway. So yeah, watching those is really fun.
Yeah.
But watching people do that live is so much more fun.
Yeah.
Like seeing them create something beautiful
Out of nothing.
in front of you out of nothing, without preparations. It's just so magical.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a very wonderful form of art, if you were to ask me.
From the year span that you've been practicing, you mentioned you've been working. You joined 2016, right? I gotta ask though.
Yes.
Do you apply the discipline of impromptu in things that you do? By any chance, is it like? I mean, not in the sense that you overthink it. It's like second nature kind of thing when it comes to things tasks to do, and do you do that? Do you add if you can't really solve it in the traditional logical or emotional sense of it, you improvise it? Do you have that discipline of adding it?
Not at all times, I think, because I still overthink from time to
Huh.
time. Because when you do improv, you're supposed to not overthink. You should just let things
Yeah.
flow. But for me, I cannot lose that control, like in a lot of situations. So sometimes I don't really do that.
Yeah.
But I can say that I'm able to apply it in a way that when something comes
Huh.
up, I think I am more equipped. I'm more equipped to handle the situation,
Huh.
even though it's like something surprising happens or something shocking happens. I would just accept it
Yeah.
and do whatever is needed to be done. But yeah, if you were to ask about if I were doing something
Mm.
improv like in my day-to-day
Mm.
life, um well, there's nothing really aside from trying to do impromptu
Oh.
speech. Like I would turn on my recorder and then just do impromptu speech on my own. But I don't publish those things because those things are just for myself,
Interesting.
unless they're recorded as a podcast.
It- it's funny. Aside from you mentioned is that even this conversation is improvised. In all my
Mhm.
years when I was in college, when my back's against the wall, I think I have a friend of mine who always is impressed by the fact that when we have like some deadlines and stuff like that, I manage to improvise myself out of it, and I think it's become second nature. I mean,
Mhm.
there are certain tasks at home that I cannot say I'm overwhelmed by the idea of it, or probably I'm not in the right headspace. But when it comes to being pressured, I don't know when or like I said, when my back's against the wall, the improvisation skill comes into play. And it's kind of funny that, yeah, one of
Yeah.
my classmates saying, "Hey, yeah, you're good, man," thing. And then when it comes to certain times when he asks for favors, saying, uh, he says he gives me a choice,
Mhm.
and then after that, don't worry about it. You're good. You're fast. You can improvise this, and kind of in one way it gives me that boost. But sometimes I doubt myself because yeah, the subconscious overthinking nature overtakes that ability to improvise. Yeah, it kind of it's like a hand sometimes. It blinds you when when you're over pressured, but then it's kind of a helpful tool in one way or the other.
Yeah.
That's one thing cool about improvisation, and yeah, that yeah, it's an art in its in itself. Have you tried any other
Right.
uh play? Have you also tried aside from impromptu? Have you tried watching plays, musicals? Have you experienced any of that stuff, especially in foreign land? Have you seen a Japanese play or a Korean play, and you know, have they done? Have you guys gone through a certain events like that when you were out of when you're in the foreign land?
Yeah. When I was in Korea, I watched this
Mm.
musical. Um, it's a sort of biography of a
Huh.
person, and it's a musical.
Wow.
It's related to like the events that happened in Korea in 1940s. I didn't understand everything because it was in Korean, but yeah, it was fun watching it because although I didn't understand exactly what they were saying,
Mm.
uh, the set in itself was enough to give me the message it was trying to give,
Mm.
and the music in itself was able to convey. While it's not exactly the thing that they were saying, but I was able to like get the message, the core of what they were trying to say, and the feeling that they wanted the people to feel.
Through the music.
So yeah, but I yeah
Oh,
yes,
that's interesting.
but I actually watched the that same show with the translation
Hmm.
afterwards, and I don't know. I liked it better when I didn't have translations.
Okay. The authenticity, I guess. I'm sure it was the native
Yeah.
Korean thing. I have a feeling because I'm sure there are a lot of subdivisions. Like here in the Philippines, we have subdivisions. In Manila, I think the Tagalog is much more thicker and richer. But when you go up to
Mm.
here, La Trinidad, the Tagalog is mixed with the Ilocano and all the other languages. So I'm sure it was native Korean. And I gotta ask, the arts program. I gotta. Now we're transitioning into the arts. Um, what are your thoughts in
Mm.
the arts program in comparison to the arts program here in the Philippines when it comes to I mean, this is an opinionated uh, question. What are your thoughts with the foreign arts programs that you've enjoyed in Korea and here? Like, if you were to suggest or advise, or what are your thoughts?
Mm. Yeah, I think. Well, I'm not sure really because I haven't seen a lot of those things. I mean, everywhere, but yeah, I think it's important that people um, put emphasis on the culture that they originally have because sometimes I feel here in the Philippines we're trying so hard to become like Westerns instead of uplifting our own culture. So yeah, I think that's something important that we put emphasis on what we have
Mm,
originally. I don't mean that we just keep that and then not evolve. But we need to evolve, we need to transform and change, but we need to transform starting from the origin, like our cultural root. We need to have that and show it to the world. Like
mm,
Korea, right? We know Korea for their traditional Korean dramas like
yeah,
palaces, things like that. That's how they started booming.
yeah,
And now they're showing contemporary stuff, of course, but
yeah.
yeah, that's how we started knowing them. So I think here in the Philippines that could somehow work as well. Although we've already done things like that, right? Like there was this Amaya TV show. So we also had cultural historical TV shows or movies. So yeah, I think those are good moves, like baby steps into putting emphasis on our cultural roots in terms of expressing it through art.
An interesting take. I mean, wow, that's phenomenal take. um, wow, now I'm blown away by everything that I've learned from you. I mean, from the beginning of the conversation, I gotta admit, you have lived an immense, I mean, an insane amount of foreign, and I mean, I think you've carried it through with your personality. And I love this conversation. It's a phenomenal conversation. I'm hoping you come back to the Rajiv show, and hopefully let's have a conversation with a lot of people, perhaps in the next season. That would be interesting. And
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I'm so happy that you've had me here today. And I'll also look forward to that.
uh, before we leave and before we say our goodbyes, I mean, if my listeners out there want to connect with you via social media, how do they find you?
Okay, so if people want to connect to me through my social media, you can find me on YouTube. My YouTube channel is just my name, Rome Juanatas. I also have Facebook, but I don't encourage you adding me on Facebook. I have Instagram, I don't use it. So yeah, YouTube, and I have a Facebook page. It's called Rome Juanatas. So that one you can follow it.
Awesome. Pal, I gotta say, thank you so much for this time. You know, I know you're a very busy guy, and I had to find a way to, reach out to you. But thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot. I mean, it's a phenomenal conversation.
Yes, thank you very much, Reggie, for having me. It's really fun talking to you.
With that in mind, I hope my listeners learned a thing or two in this conversation as well. Folks, cheers, folks. I will see you in the next episode.